Okay, so let's talk about doing a list of tokens, whatever these iMatch things are. So there's going to be two different types of things that when you match them, there's a list of things that it's going to go through. One of them is going to be cases like so a list. So we'll call it a list of tokens, or whatever you want to call it. So something like A, B, C, and then a character set D through G, right? Things like that, where literally this is going to be there's an item, there's an item, there's an item, there's an item. And in the constructor, I want to give it a list of all the items that it has to go through. The other one is going to be alternation, right? So if I have A or B or D repeated one-to-many times, then when I describe this alternation, I have to give it the first, the second, and the third items, right? And it will go through them appropriately. So because there's two cases, I'm actually going to create a base class, which I used to know a shortcut for that. So let's just add a new item. And I will call it match many base. All right, you are going to live over here. And this is going to be abstract class match many base. It's going to implement iMatch, right? But it's going to implement it abstractly because that's going to be delegated to whoever's below. But we're going to bake in a little bit of behavior. So we will have a public read-only iMatch array called MatchList, right? And we will have a public int length, I think is what I used. Yeah, length, which will just map to, MatchList. So MatchList dot length. Okay. So the final thing I guess I need is a constructor, which takes an iMatch array, which we call it MatchList, I guess. Doesn't really matter. And then this dot MatchList equals MatchList. All right. So this is just the baked-in behavior where you're going to give it a new array of whatever the tokens are that it's going to deal with, and it will do with them as it sees fit, right, depending on what type it is. But beyond that, they all have a length, so this property I can refer to all the time, and they will always have a list called MatchList, and you just move forward from there. Okay, so let's actually do one. Let's add a list. So let's add a new class, and we'll call it MatchList, right? And it inherits from match many base. And we need to actually, well, we need both of these, constructor and to implement it. So there's no new behavior being added in the constructor. Let's see, at least off the top of my head. Yeah, I think that's right. Okay. So let's move this over here. Since I'm lazy and I want it to be small, I'll do that. Okay. Okay, so what's going to happen with a match list? This is going to be, I have a sequence of tokens that I need to run through, and they have to all match. And if so, then I advance to the next guy and I try and match. Okay, sorry, I started kind of in the middle. So say I have a sequence of 3 tokens. I start with the first token and I try and match it. If it matches, I move forward to the second token and I try and match that guy. If it matches, I move forward to the third token. If I try and match it and it fails, I say, okay, well, go back to the second token and say, did you have an alternative we could try? And I'll try to issue a match next, which I can because he's already matched. If that succeeds, then I'll try that third guy again. And if that succeeds, then now I've matched all 3 and my match is complete. That act of going back and checking the previous guy, if he has an alternative, is the backtracking portion of the algorithm. So if I had backtracked to the second token and it failed, then I would say, all right, let's move back to token number 1. And I'd say, do you have other options? It could say yes or no, right? If that is true, then we move back to token number 2 and say, all right, let's try matching again. because I'm just matching forward from here. If token number 1 failed the match next, then I fall off the beginning of the list, and now my whole list, this, sequence of, in this case, 3 tokens, has failed, so I have failed. So my match now is a failure. Okay, so let's code that up. So what is it going to be to just match? So we have our context. What are we going to need to do? So I will say int index equals 0. So I'm matching forward, so I'm going to start at the beginning, and then we're going to refactor this a little bit, and so you'll see what happens. So let's do the following. While the index is less than the length, right? We got to do some stuff, and what I like to do is try and match. So if MatchList, of index.match in this context, right? If that works out just fine, then we can advance the index, and we will start from the next guy, right? If that did not match, then keeping in mind that, so this is a while in here because all I'm going to do is shift this index back and forth as we, match, start backtracking and start subtracting from the index, etc., etc., etc. And then eventually we'll fall off one of the ends and we'll be done, or we'll fail. So, okay, so what's going to happen in this case? If I couldn't match this nth token, then we need to, okay, so what has happened here is I've gone through, let's call it match index 0, I matched, and I advanced the index. Now it's match index 1, I try and match, and I fail. What I need to do is go back to the previous guy and see if it has an alternative. So we're going to decrement the index here, and then we're going to continue trying alternatives backwards until either we fall off the end or we find one. And so I'll write this down, and then we can look at it and kind of talk about it. So while the index is greater than or equal to 0, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be subtracting 1 from the index over and over and over. So while I'm still on a valid index, then I need to go ahead and try, what I'd like to do is match list of index. So this is now the previous guy, and I need to call match next on him, given this context, right? However, if he fails, then I want to decrement the index. Okay, so let's kind of run through our case again. So let's do our 1, 2, 3 token case where the first 2 have matched. So I've gone through index 0, that matched, so now index is 1. Item 2 matched, now index is 2. The item 3 fails, so I go back here and I say, okay, let's go back to the second one, right? So index goes back down to 1. While, the index is greater than or equal to 0, and, well, let's see. Let's suppose in this case that the whole thing is going to fail, so for index 1, it is not the case that this matched next. All right, well then that guy has now, if it's written correctly, will have reverted itself to the previous state. We can go backwards again and try index 0. And we loop back around. Or I'm sorry, this is in this while loop here. So I subtract 1 from the index. Index is now 0. While index is greater than or equal to 0, I'm still in the range of tokens that I have. And if there's no alternative for index 0 token, then this will fail. And then I'll decrement the index again. And now the index is less than 0, and now I've broken out of this while loop. So if it's the case that index is less than 0, we're done, right? We've simply failed. There's just no way that's going to happen. If it isn't, then advance the index to the next token, and then we'll just let the loop continue. So let's go back to our example where we have 1, 2, 3, and I kind of should have had something like an example that matched. But that's all right, it's too late. So index 0 comes in and index is 0, right? That's definitely less than the length. Does index 0 match? Yes. So we go to 1. That's less than the length. Index 1 matches. That's great. Go to 2. 2 fails. So we go back to 1. And then it doesn't match. Excuse me. It doesn't match an alternative. So we go back to 0. Let's say that matches an alternative. So then this returns true. So this not case thing breaks the while. And I don't decrement it. So now the index is still at 0. That's not the case. So I don't leave. I re-increment the index back to number 1 because now I have successfully matched the token at index 0. Okay? So now the next time around we want to try matching forward with the following index, right? So I'm going to keep backtracking as long as I keep not finding something that matches and as long as I have more tokens preceding me. If I fall out of this while loop because of this condition, it's because I failed and everything didn't match next. If I fall out of this condition because this wasn't true, which means that this was true, then I am on an index that has now matched. So next time through the loop, I want to start on the next index and continue, right? So I will do this over and over and over, and then eventually, let's suppose I get to the third one. I'm sorry, and by third I mean index 2. I come in here, this matches, index goes to 3. I come back around, now 3 is not less than the length because there's 3 tokens. So I leave out of the loop. And if I've made it to this point, then we've succeeded because we've fallen off the end, right? So that is in fact true. Okay, so I hope that made sense. Let's jump back over here and try to do that. So public static void match list. I'll just call it test1. I'm getting too lazy. Okay, so var context equals new match context, and we'll give it the string ABC, right? And we will say var I don't know, match or something. I'll call it list equals new match list of, and here it's expecting an array, so let's give it a new array of the following. This is a new match char A, new match char B, and new match char C. Okay. Okay, so I hope everybody's okay with that. I guess I want all of these over a little bit. All right, so there's my list, and I'm going to say, gosh, I kind of want to, what I'll do is I'll just step into it, and we will look at the context, because we're going to match the list, and it's just going to do it or not, which I guess is a perfectly valid thing. So if I say right line, context, and this will be hopefully just going to work. Okay, so what am I trying to do here? List.match. And I want to match given this context. And we will, we'll go back and steal this piece that says if it matched, then it succeeded. Otherwise it failed. Paste that there. This will be list in this case. Okay, so let's just run it and just see what happens here. I'm not running the right thing. That would do it. So let's run match list test1. That might help. No. What's the problem? Okay. Started there. At the end of the list, I was correctly sitting here, right? I matched 0, 1, 2, and now I'm sitting here pointing at 3, and I successfully matched it and advanced the pointer, so that's done the thing I think it should do. Okay, so, shoot, let me flip back to match tests. So let's actually step into it this time and see what happens. It's kind of nice to watch. Now, of course, I only have single screen recording, and I don't know if any way to like pin this would be nice. But that's all right. So we will come down here and we will step into the match list, right? So index is 0. This context here, it's too bad we can't view this string as like a formatted string with, character turns and things, but that's fine. So the fact that this is adjacent just means it's pointing at the A. So let's step into that, and here we are in match char, right? That's a sort of simple check to make sure we're not off the end of the line. That's true only if those do in fact match. Great. So then I change the offset. Now you can see that the context looks like ABC dash, and this has been advanced to on index 1, and that succeeds. So I increment the index. Index is still less than that. So if I go ahead and say match list, that will be true. I'm pointing at my screen. I have now advanced to position 2. Great. So, sorry, I hit the wrong key. So then we up the index again. I'm still in scope, so let's try the third one. That in fact matches, so we advance the index. Now it's index 3, and that failed. Okay, and so, I'm sorry, this failed, this test failed. So now I've completed matching and I'm done, so I must be completely done. So we've succeeded, return true, echo success, and that's that, right? Match success. All right, so let's go ahead and cut that off there. Gosh, it's already getting kind of long. And we will do something new in the next one.